So this is Tuesday, August 10th at 6:01 PM, and this is the Board of Public Works for the City of Franklin calling the meeting to order. Do a quick roll call. Myself, Chairman Webster, I'm here. Made it barely. Alderman Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Barely. Alderman Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Woznicki.
Absent.
Absent. Commissioner Porter is not here. Commissioner Specht.
Here.
Commissioner Skaronski.
Here.
City Engineer Morrow.
Here.
Assistant City Engineer Feinlich.
Here.
How'd I do?
Yep.
All right, thank you, sir. Highway Superintendent Schlueter is here,
Here.
and that brings us all up to date. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, the first item of business, of course, is the reading and approval of the minutes from July 13th, 2021 meeting. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make the motion and accept.
Commissioner Skaronski has made the motion to approve as presented. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Nelson? All of those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any negatives? Not hearing any negatives. That motion will pass. We'll move on to the public comment period.
Do you want him to come up here, sir?
If you want to come up and sit, or you can speak back there as long as the microphone's on. We don't. Okay, well then might as well stay there. The microphone's already
You're
on.
recording it, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so,
And that way it's on the mic. That's the important part.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Daniels. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Forest Hill Village Condominium Association behind City Hall here. Primarily, I came here to see what the procedure would be for a couple of items that we have concern with. As an FYI, we did Kevin Schlueter, I believe.
Schlueter.
Yep. Very good.
He did meet. You're not him, right? No. Oh, you are Kevin. Oh, sorry about that. I was. Or you, because we had talked about this, but I didn't know where else to go or where we were at it, so that's why I came to bring it to our attention.
Sure.
So, Kevin met with us, and we were very appreciative of that. What we're looking for is to get in need of repair, I believe they call them gutters, right, Kevin?
Curb and gutter. Yep.
Curbing and gutters in our complex, primarily on Legend Drive and Forest Hill Circle. My question would be, would that be, or would it be a couple of years, or what is the time frame that we would look at for something like that? That would be my one question. The second thing that we talked about on this would be the northwest side of our lot line, which is almost directly behind the police station, I think. Would that be City Hall, Kevin?
Yeah,
Where
right
that
behind
hole
City
is?
Hall.
Yeah, right behind City. There's a big hole there. A big, it's a hole that we would like to get filled and leveled with the rest of the surrounding area. We have you took out some of those, what were the trees that we took? A big depression in there. Our primary concern, after talking with Kevin, was how can we handle the drainage that might be coming off of that field that you folks bought? So we're willing to participate substantially financially to fill that thing in, and we'll take control over leveling it and all that kind of thing. But we just don't know if we have the authority to go in there and just fill it up by ourselves, since it's actually Franklin.
Is it on city property?
It's on your property, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was it. That's all I've got.
Okay. Generally speaking, we can't really respond to anything that's not on the agenda for this evening in terms of, any action.
Sure.
All I can say at this point is, by bringing it to the attention of the board and, the Public Works Department and so forth, you're doing the appropriate approach. Who is the
Mayor, I think.
Alderman Mayor?
I think so.
Okay.
We're District 2.
Okay,
At least I am.
all right.
District 2's mayor.
Mayor, thank you, sir. And so that's,
Should I go to him first?
well, that's an additional individual, I'm
Okay.
just saying, so I don't know individual, I'm
Okay.
just saying, so I don't know what the current status is of all of this stuff, and Kevin, you've kind of responded, if you want to kind of fill us in a little bit?
I did meet with them, and I see the issues out there. The curb and gutter, we did put on our list for replacement.
Oh, did you?
So, yeah, the curb and gutter, we did put on our list for replacement.
Oh, did you?
So, yeah, but it has to wait its turn.
Sure.
But we will get to it sooner or later, it's on our list. And the drainage part and back, I'm working with the engineering tech to figure out a drainage swale in there.
Right.
And then I'm gonna call you and see what we can work together on,
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
because we'll do them both together.
Okay, cool.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, that's all I needed. I appreciate your time.
So,
And,
just a real quick question. Just because I'm curious, sometimes I know curb and cutter stuff is stuff that just gets done by the Public Works Department with a street that we're, repaving or something. So you maintain a list of curb and gutter that kind of need to be updated and so forth, and kind of like the Pazer for the street, you do the similar thing then for curb and gutter? I'm just throwing it, I don't know, I'm asking.
Yes, we do. We keep a list. It is quite extensive.
I'm sure
It's
it is.
literally, the worst comes first. And theirs is pretty bad, so it moves up to the top pretty quick.
Okay, and I know I've seen you into different neighborhoods and working over the years. How approximately, how much do we, how much do we have time to work on in a given year?
It all depends on the workload. Last year, we did none.
Okay,
This year, we've done some, but nowhere near what we should be doing.
we should be, okay, I'm just asking, because I'm
Yeah.
trying to get a feel. Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Tomorrow, but a week from then, so I wanted to see if I could bring them up to speed on where we're at. As
Sounds
far
like
as
you
I'm
have some
concerned, we're
information.
cool. All right. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you. Then,
back and do the pledge of allegiance.
thank you. We'll move on to unfinished.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Oh, yes, you,
Yeah.
item also.
So Glenn Morrow, I feel like I live here at City Hall, 9229 West Loomis. It's not on the agenda tonight, and quite honestly, it's not ready for an update. That's why I didn't put it on for an update, but we are next Monday night for the DPW fire station project. The committee, the whole meeting is Monday night at 6:30. I believe the first item on the agenda is going to be a closed session item regarding the water utility, looking at wholesale water, options for 2024 and beyond. So that'll be closed session. So I would suggest maybe if you want to show up like at 7 o'clock or watch it on the YouTube channel, that we will be talking about the kind of where we are with the fire department, DPW. We'll be talking about the study. I still don't have some numbers. I was expecting today, probably tomorrow, on budgets and so forth. So I wanted this board to be familiar with it. Generally, it's easier in person. I strongly suggest YouTube, and we will next month have an update on where we stand with the project.
Question for you, since there's no way I'm available on Monday night at 7.
And
Okay,
YouTube,
so-
you can watch it later.
I'm just going to ask, is there a link or a recording that's made?
So, yeah.
How do we access it?
There is a city YouTube channel,
Okay.
City of Franklin. I believe it's type in City of Franklin. It will show you all the common council meetings that are broadcast.
Thank you.
And those are saved on YouTube.
Okay.
Presumably, if YouTube doesn't go bankrupt in the next couple of weeks, you should be able to watch it after the fact.
Okay,
Next couple of weeks, you should be able to watch it after the fact.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Did you want, okay, we'll move on then?
Move on.
Okay, we'll declare the public comment period over. And then we'll move on to item 4A, which is the Hawthorne parking up. I see that, I believe that a ordinance was created.
Ordinance was created, went to common council, got approved, and I believe we can actually post it now. It's been published in the paper. So as this board discussed, that's how it was approved at common council. And we had several folks inquire after the fact, wanting to know what the maps to everyone. So hopefully everyone's happy with the way it turned out.
Okay. Any comments from the board? Then I'll mark this as informational only. Appreciate it. Yep. And now we'll move on to new business item by Commissioner Bartnicki.
Yeah, so I think I informed some of you, if not all of you, that Mr. Bartnicki resigned. He stated it was for health reasons, so I can say that. We are, got to looking, Mr. Bartnicki was hired as a Tech 1. Mr. Bartnicki was hired as a Tech 1 in 1970. He worked here until 1986, like 16 years as an employee. Then I believe he went to work for Shorewood. And then he joined the Board of Public Works in 2008 and just retired in 2021. So think about 2021. So think about one that adds up to 29 years. But if you think about, and I'm sure he didn't disappear, as I understand from clerk's office, he was very much involved in voting and those kinds of things, helping out with the elections. So he's really had over 51 years of, I'm open to suggestions. And if you would afterwards, if you have any ideas, please provide. Also be interested in any nuggets that we could put in a proclamation, because I do want to provide a mayor some way, some special way that you think we can thank him for his service. I'm very open to that idea. I think that's admirable, over 50 years service to the city. So.
Yeah, I would
So-
agree with that.
The second part of that is we do have an open spot on the board. That were actually transportation engineers that expressed an interest in being on the board. So now that I had an open position, I reached out to those folks, and all three, for various reasons, can't do it. So we have had a few applications, but haven't had any real, what I think is, I reached out to those folks, and all three, for various reasons, can't do it. So we have had a few applications, but haven't had any real, what I think is real appropriate persons that seem to match closely what we do. So still in consideration. I'm not saying that we county seem to match closely what we do. So still in consideration. I'm not saying that we count anybody out, but if you have any suggestions for friends or family that, or I shouldn't say family, but friends that reside in the city of Franklin who would make a good addition to this board, if you would forward those to me, I would like to encourage them to get on the city website. It says, I want to, the very first thing, go down and a boards and commission, volunteer, and you need to fill out that form and get that. That's the first step, and then we can consider them.
Yeah, I would rather get that replaced sooner than later. I would rather get that replaced sooner than later as we can, because we've been low on numbers in the past, and it creates quorum issues.
Yes, it does.
And so that's rather helpful to have that completed. Okay, I'm going to mark that as informational only again, and we'll move on to item 5B, which is the new proposed 2022 local road and street program. I think it looks to me like this is kind of a work in progress at this point in time. Does that seem?
Yeah, I'll let Mr. Beinlich elaborate. Matt, Sarah pretty much used it, and I've asked Tyler to go through and, if you will, make it his, I think is the words I used. And so we have not done the PACER reviews for this year, but knowing how the budget cycle is, we have to get this in. We're basing it on the PACER system for last year. The theory is that if something was a 2 last time, it surely didn't go up to a 3 or a 4. It's still a 2. So we're still using the same rankings from last time. When the PACER ratings come in, we may adjust 1 or 2, but for the most part, this list probably won't change. So I'll let Mr. Beinlich elaborate on the report. List probably won't change. So I'll let Mr. Beinlich elaborate on the report.
Yeah, so like he said, basically to start this process, we went through with the 2019 PACER ratings, put together a kind of a preliminary prioritized list, Exhibit A there. So our 2021 ratings will happen later this fall, so that list is subject to minor change, like Glenn mentioned. The biggest thing I think that we tried to focus on was prioritizing lane miles that we can fix right now, and once we get the list of actual roads. But basically we use the PACER ratings, the 1 through 10, 1 being need full reconstruct, 10 being just brand new, no maintenance at all. And we, using that, the PACER rating, taking into account tractor and any utility adjustments that might be needed, you know, the roads with curb and gutter, there's going to be a lot more utility work. The roads with the rural cross-section without curb and gutter, it's typically going to be less utility work and less cost to fix each mile of road. One thing to also take into consideration is that in 2021, as part of the road program that's going on right now, we started contracting out the adjustment and rebuilds of storm sewer inlets, of sanitary manholes, and of water boxes. So our cost to fix 1 mile of road went up a couple $100,000 basically. So in the past, with $1 million, when we could fix 3.5 to 4 miles of road, now we're looking at 2 miles of road that we can fix. So what we tried to do was go through the Whistler system, which takes into account to get rid of our backlog of roads that need major structural work. So if you look at 2021, for example, the average pavement life is about 32.5 years. So if we tried to stay on that cycle, we're looking at we would need $2.5 million a year fixing the roads that were done 32.5 years ago. So right now, we're at with 2 miles of road, we're at almost a 100-year cycle. So the more we fall behind, the more roads are going to need full reconstruct and capital projects, and it's just not going to be able to be complete. Our request is $2.5 million for 2022, and that kind of, the list of roads in the Exhibit A is all the roads, or the length of road that we could fix with the typical pulverize and mill and overlay, or fix with the typical pulverize and mill and overlay, or just pulverize and overlay. And then Exhibit AA is kind of a alternative where we would pulverize and mill most of the roads, but we'd also place some emphasis on doing preventative maintenance like crack sealing and seal coating, stuff that DPW had time to do in the past, but now they have other obligations that they just can't get to as much. So it's just another option that we could look at for lengthening the mid-tier roads to stretch them out a little bit longer. A lot of it's from the Whistler program. You can see, for instance, Exhibit C, the condition frequency report. So just from 2019 to after the 2019 ratings, so before the 2019 ratings to today, are basically percentage of road 19 ratings to today are basically percentage of roads at 6 or below went up quite a bit. So we've almost tripled our percentage of roads that have gone from a rating of 5 to 3. So we're falling behind, and we need we're falling behind, and we need more funds than the typical, I think, million that we've gotten approximately over the past decade per year.
If I could add, this really, we've given this message before. Last year,
Yeah.
2.5 million, and we got 1 million. So it's the payment on your credit card. It's the interest is just catching up with you, and every year we just get that much further behind. So we did, and he discussed the fact that we're now asking contractors to do more. Well, why is that? Because last year we asked Common Council, we demonstrated that what DPW is being asked to do, I need 40-some people down there. We just don't have 40-some people. We didn't even get a single person. And the way this year's coming out, it's probably not prioritized that we're going to get, even if some additional funds, people are funded, we're probably not going to get, even if some additional funds, people are funded, we're probably not going to get DPW. So we talked about a street utility that was kind of shot out. That's not for Franklin. We talked about a street referendum. That's not for Franklin. We talked about various options, and really the only option we came down to is do way too much for the amount of resources that we're giving him to do it. So, like Kevin, the curb and gutters, last year they just didn't get time to do any. This year, because we had a contractor working on, doing more adjustments, we were able to get some time to work on curb and gutters that we just haven't been able to get to in the past. We're burning everything we can. We're burning up all the resources. It's been talked about how the city budgets in the past had fat. We cut the fat out. We're really cutting in the bone, and we're really hindering, with credit card debt, if you will. We're just racking up credit card debt like crazy with these roads. To shout and scream that message to all that will listen, but I don't know how we're going to fund it. Maybe we look for some of these, special stimulus packages. Maybe we focus on this area, but there's needs all over everywhere we look. So that's why the Common Council. So that's why the Common Council gets the big jobs and the cushy seats to figure this out. I don't know how else to explain other than the fact that we're asking us to do way too much that we've given our guys resources to do. So.
Yeah, no one's going to complain about the fact that I think everybody on this board and everyone on the Common Council knows, the situation that the city sits in terms of the roads and in terms of the Public Works Department, and where the numbers are. And it's one of the reasons that we don't ask as much. We ask to be done, and we try to minimize all that from this board, certainly. And so we don't add to the work. When we do ask for something, it's specific for an item that we need. So we try not to be frivolous in our requests, and I think that's probably true for most. It's probably true for most of the time. In terms of this, would you? Well, before we get to that, I think Alderman Nelson had a comment.
I think it was last year, Glenn, when you came in, we talked about the horrible overload. This year, or this budget, we start discussing the budgets, I think, next month. And like last year, it was a big thing with streets. Then they got cut for different things. But I know when we deal with Paul Rotzenberg, because we've got the tipping fees, increase in some areas. Paul Rotzenberg, because we've got the tipping fees, increase in some areas. And I urge you, because I will continue. I did not mean to.
Did you? Hang on. Let me figure it.
I can speak up, that's fine.
Well, what did I do?
There we go. Yes.
You're on.
So I guess to continue the conversations, I'd like to see, perhaps, we have the department heads come in, like when Superintendent Schluter comes in, I'd like to make that the priority, that if you believe that that's your biggest focus and biggest challenge is to somehow get the street improvement fund increased, and we do have those tipping fees that perhaps may have not been increased, and we do have those tipping fees that perhaps may have not been earmarked for certain things or are, and we need to argue for them. I've argued for streets, and, I think that we have to keep that argument going, because, there are some that kind of operate in a bubble, and there are some that kind of operate in a bubble. I live on North Cape Road. It's wonderful. It really is. It is absolutely fantastic road. I've lived there my entire life. It's never been as nice as it is now. But then you kind of forget, and then you have a gentleman that came here earlier, and he's, it's like, oh, we have this issue. So when you are driving, but it is at the forefront, and I would like to make that a priority when we start talking budgets when we hit the DPW budget. Thank you. That's it.
Anybody else have any comments? I think what you're looking for out of this board, because typically we kind of, move through the streets to start from, and I'm looking at your list, and I'm trying to understand, would list A be the appropriate list that we're looking at for this year, Exhibit A?
Yes, yeah, an alternative to consider.
Sure.
That's a little different than our typical road program.
So, I know you probably don't have an idea, a direct, final, this is what it's gonna cost, I know that. But do you have a feel for what that, this is what it's gonna cost, I know that. But do you have a feel for what that budget for for this list would be?
For the list right there, so that list is put together to add up to approximately 2.5 million.
Okay,
So
2.5. Okay, I just wanted to get a feel for that number. So, I would assume that the second question that I have on your list is, because I'm going to just be blunt, and some of this is going to get, cut down. And so the question then becomes, is the list set up so that you start from the top and go down? So if they drop off, a million, you come to the point, and whatever that is, 92nd Street or whatever we cut that off, is that what
Yep.
the list is?
Yes.
set
Yeah.
up?
So the list is set up basically. I figured out essentially what our cost was per linear foot to
Sure.
fix an average road.
Sure.
So our list is set up by linear foot. So I can just increment linear foot. So I can just incrementally take away what we would need to get to what our actual budget is. And we did try to prioritize this. There are some, 51st Street is one that is potential to maybe be pulled out because it's right adjacent to the Pleasant View Marquette work that still don't necessarily want to repave that if it's not done.
So I'm also assuming that many of the roadways that are listed in here are kind of, so it's very important to have it kind of throughout the city, but kind of, not spread out, but kind of, you have groups of roads throughout the city that we're working together, trying to make it a little bit even so that every alderman has the feel that they're all being, each district is being addressed. I'm assuming that that's kind of.
We definitely took that into consideration.
Thank you.
But that's
So-
not how they're ranked.
I
Right, we went
understand.
through that argument because District 6 had nothing for a year.
Yes.
And our
it
district
just-
can't handle, and I got just attacked.
Well, it's since we started this, what happened is that, if you go back, probably about 10 years ago, Ron and I made discussions on it, and we said, why don't we bring this forward in August so that when you go to the board, and when you go to the common council, they gotta feel they understand what roads we're looking at doing, because it always used to be you did the roads in the spring. And so we moved it up and I think it has actually helped so that the council members see what's being done and so that the council members see what's being done and they know where, you know, where we're at. So I think it's good that we're doing that this way, and I, you know, push to maintain that process. I think at this point, you know, what I would look for is what I would look for is a proposal to, is a motion to recommend to council Exhibit A as the list of roads that would be on the 2021, that would be on the 2022 local road improvement program, and that it falls into their category to determine the amount of money that we have to spend and where that cutoff is. All right, how's that sound? Ms. Beck.
I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about this option AA. How feasible is that as an option? Because if we're looking to make our roads last a little bit longer and not add to the pile in order to extend the life cycle of the ones that are in that midpoint,
Yeah,
that this option for recommending maybe Exhibit AA may address a larger issue that we're dealing with, especially if we don't anticipate, well, even if we do anticipate getting the additional funds.
In the past, what has been spoken about this is it's extreme, and this is a good question, a good point. You know, we have bought the trucks to do the crack and seal and so forth, but again, it comes down to manpower, how much manpower and so forth we have available to work on that. But certainly the crack and seal work is an important process to lengthen the life of a road. It does lengthen the life of a road. And, you know, and maybe that's the one thing I don't, because this list doesn't.
This one is
So
only
This is
repair.
only the
What we've been
repair.
typically doing, which is pulverize and then overlay, or mill
Right.
and then overlay.
So, you know, that's a secondary question is what you're asking. And it's a good one to bring up to the council. But I don't, you know, again, it comes down to the amount of money and the amount of personnel that is available to do such work.
Staff do this. We're looking
Correct.
to contract it out.
Correct. So so the second list is basically removing some of the pulverize and overlay and mill and overlay work and basically swapping it out for a little bit better roads that would get preventative maintenance like crack and seal or seal coating, just to preserve them in that, so a little bit longer.
Let me ask this question. If let's throw a number out there. If they had a value of, say, the council comes up and says we can spend 1.5 million on roads, do you have a recommendation of what a good split may be between pulverize and mill and crack seal? Would it be 2/3, 1/3? Would it be?
No, it would
I'm just
probably-
asking the question.
Bang for your buck, you're probably looking at more like 90%, 10%, like 90% pulverized still, and then 10% the preventative maintenance, because based on some of the costs that I came across, you're looking at maybe $25 a square yard. I know it's hard to kind of imagine, but for the typical pulverize and mill and overlay work, and like $350 for the treatment stuff.
What we're trying to say is that maybe it's a possibility that instead of going with Exhibit A as I originally suggested, that we go with Exhibit AA and recommend that you have a distribution of, say, 90-10, so that we can address some of the longer.
I like it.
I like it. So, I like it too, and I think it's a good thought, because I mean, that's a way to help us long-term, is to improve the 5/6 length, the 5/6 roads, and let them last longer. That, you can't improve them anymore. You can't lengthen it out.
Yeah, because definitely Exhibit C is very concerning with the changes that we're seeing in trends
Yeah.
for the number of good roads we have in this community versus the ones that are in very poor condition.
So I guess,
Poor condition.
let me say it this way. I'd ask for a motion to recommend to council the Exhibit AA as a list of roads to proceed with the 2022 road program divided on a 90-10 split for pulverized mill and crack and seal for the total road program budget.
May I make a friendly amendment?
I haven't made an amendment. I just
Okay.
made a request to ask for one.
I would, small change of leaving it to engineers' best judgment to get the biggest bang for our buck for extending the life cycle, so not tie their hands with the 90-10 split, but to leave it to them to achieve the most life
Appropriate.
cycle, appropriate life cycle that benefits the city.
Okay, do you want to make that
I
motion?
will make that motion.
May I ask if your motion includes a minimum of 2.5 million?
Yes. I'd say 2.6 if I could.
You can.
I'll second that.
Okay, so
Second that.
Okay, so Commissioner Speck has made this said motion, and I will attempt to write it up.
We'll write
later.
it together.
Yeah, we'll get to that maybe afterwards,
Yeah,
okay? And we'll get it together. Any other comments from the board members? Then not hearing any negatives, that motion will pass. And we'll move forward. The next item, item 5C, is the South 68th Street emergency. This looks like a culvert that kind of collapsed, huh?
Yeah, so I will get you in the neighborhood, but I'm going to let Tyler give you some of the details on it. So if you recall, we've had a lot of discussion on 68th Street. Remember the street we just paved?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about that. Was this
so
part of the part that was just,
Street we just paved?
yeah, I'm just
So-
wondering about that. Was this
so you-
part of the part that was just paved?
Yeah, this is Drexel, between Drexel and Rawson. And you've got Wildwood Court. Just south of this Wildwood Court, there's a driveway.
Yep.
And there's a creek running through here. We actually had a culvert piece. Come apart. And once we got to investigating, I'll let Tyler take it from here.
Yeah, so I think it started with a few weeks back, there was a water main break of the water main that's basically crossing right above this pipe. And that caused a lot of the material to wash out. The end section of one of the ends kind of settled off. So after Public Works started to investigate, we kind of saw the condition, and you can see some of the pictures where you can see the reinforcing steel is already exposed and starting to rust through. A lot of the joints are in pretty poor condition, and basically we are going through the process. We would like to request the exception from public construction bidding to expedite this work. Essentially, the options we looked at were removing it and replacing it with a brand new 54-inch reinforced concrete pipe, having it lined with a smaller plastic pipe, and then grout it around that. And then there's different lining options where they can basically take a machine in there and it sprays the inside with either a cement-based or a plastic-based liner, basically, essentially. So at the time that we put this together, and I don't think for the first option, removing and replacing, that we still have a price. Tomorrow morning we should. For lining the pipe with a smaller corrugated plastic pipe, we're looking at, the biggest issue with that is it's reducing the capacity of the pipe by quite a bit, and that serves a pretty large area. And we hadn't had numbers for the third option, which was lining it with the machine that goes in there and sprays it with a cement-based liner. I heard back from two contractors range from, at the low end, $35,000, the high end, $100,000. So I think that option kind of is out the window now. So our recommendation, or I think our best option, would be to go with number one, which would be remove and replace.
What RCP?
Yep, so looking at some price, and this is typical pricing on like Wisconsin DOT roadway projects for the installation and for 54-inch pipe which includes like the bedding and the backfill around it. You're probably talking 25,000-ish for this length of pipe. So that doesn't include the base aggregate, and 1,000-ish for this length of pipe. So that doesn't include the base aggregate and the new pavement on top, but if, it's much more cost effective to get a brand new pipe in there than to line it like number 3.
And I do anticipate, obviously, there's a water main involved here, so it's going to be some sort of cost share. We've got to figure out what was strictly attributable to that water main bursting. And the water department, in my opinion, should pay for the surface restoration, those kinds of things. And then, we'll try to minimize, because we're really looking under every cushion we can.
So this is something that, so you're looking at number 1, and you anticipate the cost is over 25,000, but we're not 100%, but you, and you've had at the low end, you've had a range. You've had at the low end, you've had a range. There may be some cost sharing or something, but that's still city budget, just another department, correct? Or
What's that?
that would still be city budget, just another department?
Well, a water utility, so utility has a separate account.
Right, that's what I'm
So
saying, another
It's
account.
not the city technically, it's a utility, it's an enterprise fund.
Gotcha,
So-
gotcha. And this would have to go to, be a recommendation to council?
Yeah, just
Or a recommendation to go get the,
actually, we're asking just the declaration process, and
gotcha.
it
So
would
what
take
you're
several
asking
weeks.
for is the only thing you're asking for from this board is that, an emergency declaration that the 68th Street 54-inch culvert pipe is an emergency and needs to be replaced.
Bingo. Bingo.
Gotcha. I'm just trying to
I
figure out.
wasn't sure what that meant.
It took me a minute to understand,
He's the new hipster. I mean,
Yeah.
Glenn's a cool guy in the street, so he just got his.
Isn't that they do when they
Did you
draw
have-
pictures, it sounds like this, or you got it on the nose.
Okay. Now I'm with you. All right.
I'm gonna, are there any other questions? Are there any other questions from the board members?
The road is currently closed, correct? Because of this failure?
No, so the pavement was, so DPW, I think, did you guys do the fix, Kevin, on the road?
We did
Yeah,
temporary.
so it is patched.
Needed separate patch?
So I'm looking for a motion. If someone would wish to make the
I'll make
emergency
that motion.
declaration motion.
Yep.
And does this have to go to council then? I mean, that's what I'm a little confused.
So we will go to common council to award a contract, whatever, and we're still,
But this-
us to avoid the public procurement lengthy process.
This is something that needs to be fixed now,
Yes.
Right.
in the light of another heavy rain event, more deterioration in that pipe, road collapse.
That thought does cross our minds.
Pardon me?
That thought does cross our minds.
Okay, I'm putting on my standard hat of like all the questions I'd be asked for justifying this as an emergency declaration to get around bidding, especially when it looks like it could go up to 70,000 once we,
But we're hoping 25-ish.
once we,
But we're hoping 25-ish, but yeah.
Not something you can do with your crew?
without the paving
We don't
repairs?
have nothing big enough to
What
pick
would,
up a
what would be
54-inch
the
concrete.
criticality of shutting down that section of road while we did follow proper bidding? What is your standard timeline for proper bidding process?
So we have to prepare the actual bid documents with all the technical language, not a big deal, so that would take us a week. You send an ad to the paper a week ahead of time when it first gets published, then it has to get published twice. So that alone is a 3-week process. And
8 weeks.
you advertise, then that has to be 8 days before you actually open bids. So it's over a month process.
So we're looking
Month
at,
and a half.
from the point of saying no, we'd be looking at probably 2 to 3 months before you could do the repair.
I don't know if it'd be that long, but it would be quite a while, yes.
I know we'd be looking at probably 2 to 3 months before you could do the repair.
I don't know if it'd be that long, but it would be quite a while, yes.
It would certainly be after the start of school at this point.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
And that's one of the key routes for bus pickup?
It would certainly be after the start of school at this point.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
And that's one of the key routes for bus pickup?
Yes, 68th Street is a minor arterial, I believe, so.
Yes. So,
And what is the risk?
Well, I suppose if it were to, well, so worst case scenario, let's say it does rain really hard again and washes more out, we could possibly lose the water main again. Once that water main goes and it starts spraying, you can eat up some yards pretty quickly.
And lose the
Mr. Skoronsky, I believe, I wrote this down and I think you made this motion, but let me read what I wrote down. To declare an emergency declaration for the 68th Street 54-inch culvert pipe for replacement.
RCP,
RCP?
that's what you want to go with, right?
Oh, well, I guess I'm not asking you, I
What-
think that's the case, but I mean, we're still looking at different options. If we were to find something cheaper, we might go something cheaper, but
Okay, then I'll eliminate.
all we're asking is for the declaration.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Skoronsky made the motion. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Thank you, Alderman. Are there any other questions? Then all of those in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Not hearing any nays, that motion will pass. That motion will pass. And then we'll move on to item 5D, which is the DPW purchase of a used snow removal machine.
So,
I think you're up, Kevin.
yep, I handed out the sheets, what it is, mobile machine that we requested. We did not get the full funding we had asked for, we got a partial. So I'm not able to purchase a new machine with the amount we got or received. So what I did is I started looking for used, and I came across 2 machines that are out there, and there's a little bit of a difference. One's a 2014, one's a 2018, as you can see, and there's a price difference that goes with them. They're more than what we had originally. We were put down to 60,000, but the account this comes out of, we had, on the other equipment, we purchased our budget, so we have the funds to cover this. So we could buy either machine. Now, the reason I'm bringing 2 of these is because it's a first come, first serve. I could call there tomorrow and they could say, sorry, they're both gone. I could call and they could say, yep, they're still both available. So that's why I'm bringing both of them, and they could say, yep, they're still both available. So that's why I'm bringing both of these to you. It's kind of a horse apiece. One's got 900 hours, one's got 700 hours, one's 4 years older. Because they're used and because there's sight unseen, I did go with the extended warranty. But I'm able to make this amount work with the funds I have. Is it the ideal situation?
Either one of them.
No, but yeah, either one of them I can make work. But I'm bringing both of them because I could call tomorrow and they could say one is gone, but this one's available. So that's why I'm bringing both of these.
Canadian dollars.
Say again?
Canadian
I'm
dollars.
in better shape now. I'd like to yield to Mr. Skoronsky, then that's what
Yes,
we got for him.
Mr. Skoronsky.
This is primarily for sidewalks, right?
This is sidewalks and park paths.
And what?
Park paths,
Okay,
I'm sorry, walking paths.
for the walking paths
Yeah.
that we have to maintain year-round.
Year-round,
All right, and I noticed ones
Yeah.
that we have to maintain year-round.
year-round.
All right, and I noticed one's got a 60-inch dual auger, the other one's got a 50-inch.
That-
Obviously, the one with the 60-inch would be more preferable,
Yes.
the newer one.
The 60 inch is what normal sidewalk is. He can put either 60 or 50 on either or for the same price, but obviously we would want the 60.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Alderman?
I would just like to make the motion, go ahead, sorry.
Nope.
I was gonna make a motion to have Mr. Schleter move forward with what he wants to get, preferably the newer one, not have him lose out. So that's a motion to let him have the authority to go and move forward and purchase.
Okay, now does this, I'm a little confused about, it seems like the board, the council has kind of changed its rules about what it allows the board to do in terms of, kind of an impression that, it used to be that if we ever had a purchase, if it's already in the budget, we're good. And then a couple of times we've had kind of reverses where we've had to send it to the council for the approval, so I'm just a little confused as to what we're allowed.
I guess my opinion, and Glenn can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're requesting to move forward, and we can.
I thought that was the direction. So if common council sets the budget and then the board looks at it and authorizes it. The question does come sometimes when we talk about auctioning, so that somehow gets turned around sometimes about who sees what when. But as far as purchasing, I think that's always been turned around sometimes about who sees what when. But as far as purchasing, I think that's always been.
I'm just asking the question.
No, good question.
I don't want to do something to get myself in trouble.
I'll take the pain.
Well, and I'll second.
Okay, so we got a first and a second.
Commissioner Specht.
Since it's in Canada, are we gonna be able to get it?
Included in,
It's got a quarantine.
yeah, it's pricey to get it down. Included in this price was the freight, and that's almost $4,000.
Well, I know, but right now, there's very limited
Yeah.
crossing across the border.
Yeah, it does concern me. But once we would have it
I'm going to be good.
officially bought,
So, and it's not, would it hinder you if we couldn't get it this winter?
I need it really bad, but I'm told they can get it here.
Okay.
Perfect.
So,
I'll trust the guys. So.
Drive it across.
okay.
They'll push on one side of the border and you'll pull on the other side of the border.
So,
Push on one side of the border and you'll pull on the other side of the border.
so the motion is to approve the purchase of whichever vehicle that he can, preferably the newer of the two, but either vehicles that is.
And the superintendent's purview, yes.
Thank you, sir. I will correct that. All of those, thank you, sir. I will correct that. All of those in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Any negatives? Not hearing any negatives, that motion will pass.
Thank you.
You bet. Then we on to the, we're to the end here. So the next meeting is September the 14th at 6 p.m. And then it is 6:54. Do I have a motion? Second? Second?
Second.
Thank you. I can't look everywhere at once. Okay, Commissioner Skronsky and Commissioner Specht, first and second. All of those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And we are